split flow madness, and another solar eruption. But is this one headed our way? Well, stick around, we'll find out, as well as take a look at a volcano that went off. I've got images of that. A couple of big earthquakes over the weekend. We're going to take a look at exactly where those hit. And we've got more severe weather to talk about. We'll take a look at all of that, plus your upcoming work week forecast, all on today's episode of Cold Rain's Weather World. It's back, and it starts right now. Hey there, friends, and welcome into another exciting edition of Cold Rain's Weather World, the most fun-filled, action-packed weather show on the internet. And we've got a good show lined up for you today. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend doing whatever it is that you did. It was a stormy weekend for some of you, and we saw big storms out in Texas and Oklahoma yesterday. We're going to take a look at that, but we've got a lot of weather coming up today to talk about. We've got severe weather potentially this afternoon, a big split flow problem that we're going to be dealing with over the next probably couple of weeks, maybe even beyond that. We've got a volcano to show you and some earthquake data to talk about, as well as that solar activity I mentioned at the top of the show. We're going to look at all of that, including your work week forecast, and take a peek around the corner to look at the long range too. So all of that's coming up. I've got the show segments kind of outlined in the description, so you can skip where you need to skip to. But that's what we've got going on. We're going to get started right now with the severe weather threat, and we're going to do our IQ question in just a minute. So stick around for that. And by the way, let me know if you have any comments about the show, any questions, anything like that. Tell me where you live, because I don't know where a lot of you are, and you comment to me, and I'm not sure where you're commenting from. Let me know where you're at, and we can talk about the weather in your area if you have any questions about that. But this afternoon, if you live up and down the Appalachians from southern New York all the way down in toward the deep south here from Alabama over to the southeast coast, you have the risk for severe weather today, and also back here in eastern New Mexico. Marginal risk sort of surrounds that into South Texas, and then again up here in Michigan and places like that. You could see isolated severe weather, but we're really not looking at a big tornado threat, although tornado or two is not out of the question. We saw a couple of those yesterday as well. Wind is kind of the primary threat. Hail, certainly could see some hail, but looking at large hail, we're not really seeing a good setup for that this afternoon. But wind certainly is the primary threat with any of these storm clusters that sort of get together and merge together and combine forces and really organize that wind threat for a brief period of time. But again, not a big, massive severe weather outbreak like we saw yesterday. Our thunderstorm fuel this afternoon, folks, is a little less than yesterday with the big dark purples and whites that we saw back here in Oklahoma and Texas. We're not going to see that. As a matter of fact, we've got a minimum this morning. Thunderstorms have eaten a lot of that fuel up and spit it out in the form of wind and hail. But this afternoon, as we get on in through the day, we start to get into 3, 4, 5 o'clock this afternoon. We're seeing big Cape build back over here in Texas, maybe 3,000 joules per kilogram. So that's respectable. And then up and down the frontal zone, we're seeing Cape pool along there too. So we're seeing moisture pool, and we're getting Cape as well across the southeast. So all of this instability is building as we go through the afternoon, and these boundaries and little systems are going to work on that and eat it up and form showers and thunderstorms as we go on through the evening. So that's what's going on. You can kind of see how that plays out. Looking at the projected radar, a future radar for this afternoon, the HRRR model is doing a good job of finding the showers that are out there now. So this has got a good handle on what's going on. And so as we go through the day, check this out. I'm going to leave it zoomed out so we can kind of see the whole picture. But as we go on through the afternoon, we can see those showers and thunderstorms really building here along that cold frontal zone, extending from this big low. See what's going on here is we've got this big low pressure in the upper atmosphere that's sitting here in the western Great Lakes. We've got a kind of a boundary along around that, a frontal zone like this. We've got another piece of energy moving out of the arc latex in toward the southeast. That's going to lose a little bit of its punch as it goes on through, but it's going to still have enough energy to spark off showers and thunderstorms here, and another piece of energy moving in from the desert southwest that's kind of moving in like that. So those are the keys that were key elements of energy we're watching as we go through the afternoon. See those showers building across the southeast. The frontal zone continues to light up and advance to the east, and then we get showers and storms out here in South Texas, eastern New Mexico. That's where the big activity is going to be if we find any big activity, the bigger thunderstorm intensity is going to be out there. But again, as we go on, slip on into the evening and get into the early evening hours, plenty of showers. So anybody from the Ohio Valley to the central East Coast is going to find themselves under rain and showers and potentially thunderstorms at some point today. And then out here in eastern Texas, getting into eastern New Mexico slipping into western Texas and southern Texas, we're seeing larger thunderstorms like supercells and things like that, and maybe a bigger hail threat out here too, but really wind is going to be the primary threat. So that's how it looks as we go on out in the evening. Taking a look right now at what's going on out there, as I said, the HRRR did a pretty good job of capturing this big thunderstorm complex from central Alabama, central Mississippi down into southern Alabama, southern Georgia, even slipping in through Waco and places toward Houston and south central Texas. We're seeing showers. Showers already lighting up along the frontal zone, approaching Columbus. We've got a big cluster of heavy rain here. And then up in Wisconsin, too, we're seeing a big cluster of showers. And then over here in the northeast, and all of those are moving, kind of see that spin up here, but all of those are either moving to the east or to the east-northeast through time as we go on out through the day. Now, the satellite picture does a good job here of overlaying the clouds and the thunderstorms. So you can see where the actual thunderstorm complexes are down here in south central Texas and across the central and southern Dixie Alley area. Big clouds extending along that cold frontal zone. And there's the low pressure spinning up here in the Midwest. And we're going to see clouds all the way up through New England. Clouds will advance through to the east through the course of the day, looking pretty good out west. And then if we take a look at our hazards map today and see what's going on in terms of our alerts, flood watch up here in New York, Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania anyways, where you could see a few inches of rain, a couple inches of rain up here. Air quality is still a problem with that Canadian wildfire smoke up in the northeast, so stay indoors if you can out there. Severe thunderstorm watch, what's left of it down here in Texas, southern Texas, and along the coast of Louisiana as well. Heat advisories and extreme heat warnings are up here, folks. Going to be in the 90s, upper 90s to 100 up here in the Pacific Northwest, down through the Pacific coast and into the desert Southwest, to Death Valley. We could see temperatures in Death Valley approaching 120 to 125 degrees. That is way too hot for cold rain. Cold rain likes cold, and cold rain does not like hot weather. So glad I don't live out there. As far as the surface map goes, this is kind of what we're all used to seeing. See, there's that low pressure up here. See that? There it is. Boom. And there's big cold front kind of working down, so you can see all of that for yourself. But we've got a kind of an overlapping severe and heavy rain threat up here in the northeast, and also in the southeast could pick up a couple of inches of rain down here. But the severe weather threat there, anywhere in this green, you could see showers and thunderstorms. Certainly not going to be a washout unless you're up and down the Ohio Valley and the Appalachians here, working into the western south and southeast and east coast. Or back here in Texas this afternoon. But other than that, it's going to be just sort of scattered, spotty activity. So that's what you can expect through the day. And taking a look at the temperatures, below normal up here in the northeast with 60s under the influence of clouds and rain. That low pressure, that upper low, is spinning over the Midwest, bringing 50s and 60s up here. So it's below normal up here. Good chunk of real estate in the nation's midsection in the 70s, below normal. Start to get down here into Virginia and south toward Oklahoma. We're seeing 80s and 90s, 100 down here in Texas and in the desert Southwest, and hundreds in Washington State, man. It's going to be warm along the western third of the country. So take it easy, folks. If you're up there, get inside and enjoy a cool beverage when you can. Now, we're going to go ahead now and get to our Weather IQ question. And today's Weather IQ question has to do with our satellite, the moon. All right, so here it is. What is the term for the closest point to the Earth in which the moon passes during its orbit? Is it the apex, perigee, apogee, or golly gee? Maybe you can eliminate one of those answers, but if you know the answer, type it in the comment section. If you do not know it, then stay tuned until the end of the show, and I will let you know what it is, folks. But the Weather IQ question is back, and I wonder how good your Weather IQ is about the moon. Now we're going to take a look at the pattern that has been driving all of this madness, this severe weather activity that we've seen and will continue to see. And we're going to look at all of that here in just a second. And we'll take a look at the rest of the work week forecast too. But look what happened yesterday. Big wind over here along the East Coast and a couple of tornadoes up in Virginia where we were focusing on. But just like I said yesterday, we had the potential for a big wind event in Texas. We certainly saw that play out. Some lines of storms formed, some clusters formed, had a couple of bow segments move through and produce some big time wind, 80 to 100 miles per hour, just like we said. Knox, Texas, we had hail reports too. Knox, Texas checked in with 100 mile per hour wind gusts, and that was the winner for the day there. 4.2 inch 4.25 inch hail basically out of Armstrong, Texas. That's where we saw the winner for hail. Would not want that falling anywhere near me, but hurricane force winds out here in Texas yesterday, folks. We're not going to see anything like that today, of course, but what is driving all of this? And the answer to that question is essentially we've got a split flow in the atmosphere. Now, folks, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, this is why you subscribe. So go ahead and do that. Hit the notifications, turn on those notifications. We put these videos out. We kind of walk through what's going on, why it's happening, and show a bunch of other interesting things that are related to geological, solar, and things that might affect you or people that you know or fun to look at from a weather perspective. And so do that. Share this channel. Let's grow the community. Give us a like if you like the content. And I'll keep making it relevant. Let me know what you like and put it in the comments section. I'm happy to do that. Certainly, it's helpful for me to know what you like to hear too. So it helps me grow the channel in a way that's pleasing for you. Now, looking at this, we're looking at Tuesday morning. We've got a split flow pattern out here, folks, and that's been kind of our primary culprit. We've got the northern branch jet stream. You can kind of see that well-defined here with these bright colors kind of going like this. Big trough here where that low pressure is. And then we've got the southern branch kind of coming in like this. So look, we've got couple little waves here. You see those little baggy lines? That's troughing in the upper atmosphere down toward the south. So as we go on out in time, check this out. So let's see what happens. Let's see if this changes appreciably. So what happens? Still got that northern branch kind of moving along as we get on into Thursday. Look, it's moving along to the north, kind of flattened out a bit, but we've got this big trough down here working into Texas. So that tells me, if I'm looking at this map, we're going to probably see some cool temperatures along the border where the winds are up there, kind of moving to the east, and then a little bit maybe a cooler area back here in Texas, but we've got ridging along kind of the coasts here and along the southeast coast too. So those are the areas that we may find a little bit warmer, may find some unsettled weather along the south with these energy pockets moving through. And so as we go on out in time, check that out. There we go. Friday, we still have that same sort of pattern. We end the week with the pattern that we sort of started with just a little less amplification. There you go, ridging the center of the country down here in the southern branch. Look at that, ridging over the southeast, but troughing continues in parts of these areas down here in Texas. So unfortunately, we're going to continue to see an active pattern and various temperature along the way. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time belaboring this, but look, as we go on out in time, you can see how we go through the week. This is Wednesday morning, plenty of little systems moving through the flow down in the north and the south, and we're seeing shower and thunderstorm responses in those areas as we go through the week. So just an active pattern across the northern tier, active pattern across the southern tier. We get on into Friday afternoon, seeing more activity, and then we'll probably start to see a little bit more in the increase in terms of the eastern portion of the country in a general sense as we get on in toward the weekend. We're not going to make this claim this to be too reliable because we're out here 7 days out now, but again, that's the general pattern. So the places that I'm watching for activity and potentially severe weather as we go through the week are places like here up in the northern tier and also in the southern tier in these areas here with little pieces of energy moving along in the flow. Looking at the total precipitation, you can kind of see those footprints play out, right? You get some of this is the next couple of days, but over time, we're looking at energy coming in along the north, energy tracking along the south, and seeing plenty of rain associated with that. Everybody else, maybe a general shower or two, but those are the main areas of focus. Looking at where we're looking at trying to determine above and below normal temperatures, like we talked about, looking at Monday afternoon, this afternoon, below here in the plains, back into toward Texas, that pushes east. Texas under that trough that's working in we saw earlier. There it is, a little bit below normal in Texas through the Ohio Valley that slips onto the south and the east. A new piece of energy kind of pushes in up here as we get on in toward Thursday into Friday. So, you know, really not until we get to the weekend do we start to finally see some relief along the west coast, but much of the center and eastern portion of the country is either going to be at or below normal for the week. And how do temperatures play out? Well, that is going to play out just like this. Here, let me back this over a little bit so you can see up here in the northeast, but cool in the northeast on Tuesday, 70s, 60s, and 70s as we get on in toward the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. We'll see plenty of 80s along the south and into the Great Plains and back into the northwest and back into the desert southwest where we start to see 90s and 100s in those areas Tuesday. Wednesday, a little bit the same, starts to warm up in here in the nation's midsection. Still going to be cool across the border, 70s and maybe some 60s up toward the Great Lakes. Intermountain West, the Rockies, we're going to see a little bit of a cooler temperature regime there. 90s up to the border, continuing in western Washington state. Hundreds in the desert Southwest, plenty of 80s and 90s for the rest of the country. And that will continue basically along the northern third of the nation. We're going to see 60s and 70s, particularly up into the Great Plains as we get on into Thursday. Pacific Northwest may try to cool off toward the end of the week as far as the western sections anyway, but 80s up to the border, hundreds in the desert Southwest, 80s and 90s across the South. Thursday into Friday, much the same, 60s and 70s across the north, cooler than normal there, and we're getting to see a legitimate cool punch come in toward the weekend out west. In the Northwest at least, but warm everywhere else, folks. That is your work week forecast. Looking out beyond that, the pattern continues to be the same, and so let's get this on the pivotal display here. 6 to 10 days. This takes us through the 18th, from the 14th to the 18th. Big signal for warmth out west, kind of above normal across much of the South as we get on into the period, and below normal up into the east, northeast, and the northwest. And there's our rainfall that we kind of expect to continue across the north, and then across the south and southeast up the east coast we see a signal for above normal precipitation. And that's our weather for the week. Now, what happened yesterday? Look at this. A big solar event happened again, and you can kind of see that play out. Watch this. This is the coronagraph, and it'll reset here in a second. So boom, you had one to the north, one to the south. Fortunately for us, another CME, so a couple of filaments erupted, sent CMEs out into space. But look at this. So this is what's going on. This is kind of the one that's toward Earth. There's Earth. And this goes just to the south of Earth. You see that? So we're just going to get a glancing blow, fortunately. Kind of big, strong solar wind event there, but it goes just to the south of us. So that means not a lot in terms of aurora or geomagnetic impacts to us, which is good. But we have another coronal hole stream. I'll put this in motion here. Coronal hole stream kind of moving in here. Coronal hole, I should say, and we'll have a wind stream coming out of that, so solar wind. So we're going to watch that. Maybe it's a little bit too far to the south to affect us, which would be good. But sunspots here, big bright ones here, bright ones coming in around the limb too. But nothing is too active at the moment, meaning very little in the way of aurora, so that's good. We did have a couple of big earthquakes this weekend, a magnitude 6 down in Chile and another magnitude 6.3 in Colombia, and this was kind of close to the Earth. Saw some damage out of that. As a matter of fact, here are a couple of pictures of that. See some road split, some property destruction. There are people walking dogs. There we go. Big kind of roof collapse and all of that. So there was quite a bit of damage, but no casualties have been reported. Thank goodness for that. But look at this. We had Volcano go off over the weekend. Mount Fuego. Take a look at Mount Fuego erupt here. So look at this. Boom, it comes up. Man, I would hate to be walking around on the crater at this time. Of course, that would be very stupid for anybody to be up there. Nobody would be. But look how that sort of splatters out and scatters over top of the mountain. And this sort of pattern repeats. So this is an active volcano. I think it erupted earlier this year and erupted back in 2023. But a lot of times there's a correlation to solar activity and then geological activity. So some of these spots can kind of wake up when you get geomagnetic event, extreme dense solar wind, CMEs, things like that. So that's what's going on around the world, folks. And that leads us into the answer to today's weather IQ question. And the question is, what is the closest point to the Earth through which the moon passes during its orbit? The apex, perigee, apogee, or golly gee? The answer is perigee. The moon's orbit around the Earth is not circular, it's kind of elliptical, and so it gets farther away at some point and closer at some point, and the perigee is the term for the closest point that it gets. And you've heard the term supermoon. Well, that's when the moon is full and visible in the night sky during the pass through the perigee, and it makes it appear larger and brighter, and that's where the term supermoon comes from. Of course, golly gee is a phrase they used back in the 50s and 60s to represent things like gosh darn it. They also had cool words like keen and you dig. Okay, so now today, of course, we don't use those words anymore. We use things like rad and totally tubular and grody. But actually, those are 80s words. I guess you'll have to figure out what we use today, folks. But that is it for the day. Oh, by the way, Today, in this day in history, in 1973, Secretariat won the Triple Crown. In case you wanted to know that, you can go tell some people at the water cooler. Cool information you learned at Cold Rains Weather World. Well, that's it for the show today, folks. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll be traveling tomorrow, so won't be able to get a full show out, but I'll be back in the saddle on Wednesday. In the meantime, I'll pray for all of you that are watching this video and have subscribed. Please pray for me too. If there's anything specific I can pray over for you, don't hesitate to put that in the comments. Let me know, what you're liking about the show and anything else you want to comment about. So that's it, folks. Take care. Have a wonderful day.